Okay, guys, I believe we are live. The third panel of the third edition of the Esports and Gaming Forum. Today we are going to talk about the advertiser, whether advertiser catch the moment or hide because of the unsure economic changes. We got great guests together with me, Jorge Schnura Becerro, president and co-founder of MedLions.
Hey there.
Misha Sher. Yeah, thank you, Jorge, for joining. Misha Sher, Worldwide Vice President, Sports and Entertainment MediaCom.
How are you? Good to join you.
Yeah, and last but not least, Lukasz, Zolynia, Partnership Manager at G2 Esports.
Hello, excited to be there with you today.
Okay, guys. So we got a pool, and I love you to answer the question that will appear in a couple of seconds on the chat. This is the first time we try to do it on Hopin, so I hope it will work. And let's start with the first question to the speakers. But first, please remember you are able to ask the questions on the chat. If I see a question on the chat, I will ask it to our guest. So, Misha, let's start with a very general one. Basically, we all know that when the lockdown began, there were some uncertain moves from the advertisers. Some of them, like Coca-Cola, Mercedes, Adidas, they decided to take their media budgets on hold. What's the situation right now after 3 months? Are the budgets back?
Well, I wouldn't say the budgets are back, but I think we're starting to see, movement. We're starting to see some level of activity coming back. I think that activity really depends on what's going on in particular regions. So, we have certain clients that perhaps are seeing more activity, in places like the Far East, for example, right? As they begin to come back, and they tend to be a bit ahead of the curve compared to the rest, to perhaps Europe and North America. So if they're, when they're looking at the rest of the year, now they might be spending more in places like China, while sort of holding off. Whilst there's some clarity and activity in terms of markets opening up in Western Europe and North America.
I see. So, Jorge, definitely the lockdown was a difficult time for all the entities operating in the field of esports, but you guys in MedLions definitely used the chance. Amazing performance in LEC. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's really impressive. I'm so happy we got you from MedLions. We had Philip from BIG, who's the first in HLTV ranking, so we got a great lineup today. But my question refers to something quite difficult. So many teams, in connection with the lockdown, decided to drastic actions, including reducing the salaries of players and staff. What reaction did you choose? Did you have to do it?
So, well, what we did is we basically reevaluated a bit of what our activities were going to be, and it was more about shifting resources rather than than things related to other aspects. So we were basically thinking, okay, we cannot be physically with our players to record content. What sort of content should we start preparing to do? And then you'll start seeing some of that in the coming months, because I don't think this situation is about finding a short-term solution. We need to find a long-term solution as well, because there is a slightly different reality that is going to stay, and who says it's not coming back in October, November, right? So we need to be prepared for that as well.
Okay, Jorge, let me ask a very general question. I know we are going to talk about advertisers and sponsorships, but I'm very curious because I'm, let's say, a veteran in esports, and Spain was always present in the field of esports. I know, for example, the famous team Existence, but what's happening right now is very interesting because you guys got some great teams from Spain, MedLions, Giants, many others who are really playing on very, very high level. What happened in Spain in recent few years that we see such a strong esports community over there?
Right. Well, I think there was a lot of investment, both from the national league, the LVP, as well as from the teams. I think also the fact that we got acquired by Overactive Media, which gave us more resources to expand and to go beyond Spain and really be a European team that is present in the whole of Europe, and that is present in the most important international competition. So I think, it was basically the fact of external investment coming in, both at the league level and at the organizations level.
Okay, I see. That's something very interesting, an interesting insight that some regions that can't compete with the top regions like Poland need simply more attention from the VCs, more money to be put into the ecosystem. Lukasz, you are one of the largest organizations in the world, G2. Could you tell us a little bit more about how the structure look like in the arena of business, partnership, client service? How are you structured, guys?
So in terms of the whole business, it's mainly the commercial team that has been split into 3 pillars. First of it is merchandise. Second part is, of course, business development. And the third one, I would say, the most important also in the current, let's say, conditions, partnerships department, where we have to take care because how wars look like right now, it's really challenging. There are many obstacles, and similar to many other industries, every crisis creates opportunities, and that's our task. That's our main goal right now, to not only maintain and keep the same frequency, but also to use the opportunity where we are right now and make some good out of it.
Okay, I see. Misha, many people said that the lockdown would change the position of esports. Some even called it a huge chance for electronic sports. Would you say that esports actually gain importance in relation to traditional sport? How do you see it?
I think so. And this isn't. It's not a disrespect to esports, because I think as an industry, it's been growing and gaining in prominence and credibility for a number of years. But certainly at a time when everything else stops and there is no live sport, there aren't many places for people to go. There aren't many places for advertisers to go to still be connected and relevant to a lot of the people that they want to engage with. And if you think about the nature of esports, it's as much as it has grown and we now have live events, at its core, it's still online, right? So you don't have the same. It's very easy for the industry to adapt in the time of crisis like this, as opposed to obviously sort of mainstream sports. So yes, I think it's and what the other thing that's happened is you now had a lot of the mainstream athletes who are prominent and are now at home and had nothing to do. And what are they doing, right? So they're taking part in a lot of these esports tournaments and games, and they're playing each other. And perhaps they're elevating the interest or the profile of maybe some of the more casual fans in gaming, because that's the environment that they migrated to. So I would say overall, it's been. I don't want to say that anyone is sort of winning out of a situation that we've been in over the past couple of months, but I certainly think that the esports and the gaming industry has certainly been elevated as a result of everything else being on hold.
I see. Jorge, as the CEO and the founder of the top esports organization, you are definitely in constant communication with your investors. So that may be a tough question, but do you expect the drop in your revenues in 2020 comparing to 2019, or is it too early to have such conversation with your investors?
Right. So, I mean, with Overactive Media, we don't have a investee relationship because we're integrated into the whole organization. So we work as one org, and Mad Lions is just one of our businesses, right? But initially, we thought actually that it would have a deep impact on our revenues. It's actually showing that it looks as we're going to be on target, and these first 6 months have been phenomenal. They have, the revenue has not come from the places where we expected it would come, or from the types of brands we expected, they would come, but from other brands who have been thriving in this environment, or who want to use this opportunity to double down on their esports bet, who maybe got some money back on traditional sports or on events. So we are actually way more optimistic now than we were at the beginning of the year. definitely.
Okay, great to hear that. We really need esport teams that are able to fulfill the expectation of the owners or the investors. We got a really great questions on chat. Lukasz, so how is it about gaining new sponsor when you run such an organization like G2 Esports? Is it more waiting for the calls, for the brief from clients, or do you have to actively work to get in touch with clients? So is it more about your position gives you the opportunity to simply sit and wait?
I would say the competition exists also in this field. So our players compete in virtual arenas. We, as let's say a business side, we compete for budgets as well. Of course, sometimes like if you have a well-established brand, it's relatively easier, or the chance whenever a company decides to enter esports, at least you might be one of the first contact points. But at the end of the day, it's constantly searching, of course, for the revenues, especially that there is a lot of new projects entering, and everyone wants to have like a piece of this cake. So definitely the chat, like it's not getting worse or it's not getting better. I think it's just different how it looks right now, but still the approach remains the same, meaning you have to be the best, or you have to be one of the best. You have to provide and secure the quality, and you have to provide the value for your partner, because it's not like buying advertising service. It's all about partnership relation and making sure that the way you work with the partner, it's the way you would do no matter what obstacles. So it's all the time striving for greatness.
So to sum it up, Lukasz, even G2 Esports have to do the new business stuff, calling clients, hey guys, do you want to work with us?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so there is no shame for a minor esport organization to do it, to try to approach clients, not only waiting.
Yes, and it's not a short process. Sometimes, even based on G2 experience, it takes literally years to have partners on board.
Okay, and a quick question. Last week's, both for you, Lukasz, and for you, Jorge, or last month, it was more about keeping partners or getting new ones. How do you look at the last quarter?
So in our case, it was a bit of both. So on Madlands, we started from scratch with partners. So all the partners we have are new, basically. So there was no problem there because we factored in all the factors already. At Overactive Media, we do have a lot of partners that we were looking at make goods, but we were satisfied because the digital activations perform better than the physical ones. So many times it's the brand that asks you for the physical one, but then they see that the digital is actually the one that gives the ROI, So we had a bit of both, for sure.
Okay, Lukasz?
I would say because we are also growing really fast and we have a wide team, we could split our responsibilities, meaning, of course, but both are the same, like both things are equal, meaning like we have to, of course, maintain the current relations and make sure that everything works as planned, or for example, like that we deliver what has been promised, but at the same time we cannot lower our efforts, meaning we have to also go extra mile right now and not only secure things for 2020 but also look in the future.
Okay, I see. Misha, so there are many esport teams, tournament agencies, companies that say, hey, we are the heroes of the esport, and every company bring other approach to how to introduce the new brand in esports. Do you see any general, tendencies or maybe trends for the next few months? What's the role of esports in the global strategy of the brands?
Yeah, well, I think what's really interesting about this, the role of the agency is to really help the clients navigate the space, because it's really, I wouldn't say majority, but many of the clients, many of the brands that are looking to get involved, they know that this is an area that's growing and it's really big and it's really interesting. But I think helping them navigate what that actually means, what is the difference between the Mad Lions and G2, and sort of what is particularly in the digital world, right, where you have this, you don't really have this the geographic, in many cases, geographic divides. Being able to guide clients on that journey, making sure that they are investing in the right type of area, be that the publisher or the team or the individual or a competition, or there's so many different ways in. I don't know if there is a sort of a set way in terms of how it's done, but I certainly think many of the agencies will have now developed some type of an approach, a kind of a framework approach that helps clients narrow down exactly what is the best entry point into that space for them. And it's very different. It's different depending on the client, depending on the category, depending on who they're trying to reach and what they're trying to do. So it's, I guess, simplifying the role of the agencies to really simplify that process and using a lot of the data and insights to do that.
Yeah, definitely. It's super difficult for a major brand, to find a way to enter esports and do it in the way that seems natural, that seems right. Jorge, so you are the CEO and founder of one of the best esports organizations in Europe. I believe you are a very busy person. So tell us more about how do you divide your time as the CEO? Because basically there are different approaches. There are some CEOs that are more interested in the esport performance, some in the community, some in the marketing and business stuff. How do you do it?
So as president of Mad Lions, most of my time is spent on what I think is most important at any given time, right? And in this case, right now, I think it's the partnerships aspect. So you could say that 70% of my time is on revenue generating activities, right? Whereas 30% is more on the marketing side. Everything that's team operations and basically anything performance related, we have it centralized at Overactive Media. So that's something that I don't take care of. It's also not an area of expertise of mine because I'm a business guy. I'm not a performance person. Besides that, I'm also VP of strategy at Overactive Media, where I also dedicate some of the time. But definitely right now, most of my time is on revenue generation.
Okay, so you said something very interesting. You said you are not the expert in the performance. So let me ask you an honest question. What's your expertise level in terms of esports?
Sure. So when I started Mad Lions, I had barely watched any esports match, to be quite honest. I just saw a business opportunity and I thought it was interesting. So I started watching, I started studying about it, I started learning. A very good friend of mine, Jimmy Fussing from Sunstone Capital, now called Hardcore, was invested in Astralis, the biggest investor there. So I did know a lot from him in the space from the business perspective. Okay. Right now, I do watch every single match of the team, and I do understand it all. And I play League of Legends, a couple times per week. But I'm by no means good or an expert that can evaluate anything on the performance level.
I see. So, Lukasz, Misha said that there are different approaches how to enter the esport for a brand, that you may cooperate with agency, influencer, streamer, esport organization, etc. So as far as I know, G2 is not only about professional esport players, it's also about the influencer and streamer. So we come to a point where we need to ask, what is the difference between an esport agency or an influencer agency and an esport organization? Because it may be very difficult to understand from a perspective of a brand.
Yeah, so in my opinion, the main difference or the key value of esports organization is that there is this extra layer that allows you to gather top talents, meaning top players in a team, top influencers under one brand, and from this brand tell all the stories. Of course, it depends on case-by-case basis, meaning some brands or some companies might want to enter esports or gaming on a specific way, or every company has their own needs. So both approaches are valid and both approaches are good. But the main difference, as I mentioned, is that because you have one extra brand, and so for example, when you have a brand and you want to enter the esports or gaming and you want to work with certain players, you work with those respective individuals. But you're looking usually for the biggest talents or those who have the highest impact. But the positive side, or the difference when you have a team, you can have, for example, one or two star players, three smaller, let's say, players who also achieve the same success. They are part of the same story, and every individual has very own history that can be taught on multiple ways, and brands can be part of it.
Okay, I need you, Lukasz, to answer this question in one sentence. What is the difference between esport organization and agency?
That's the brand, meaning every player, every influencer represented by agency can be a part of organization, right? They are a part of something bigger, like one entity, and that's how what else you can provide. Meaning, organization can work with agency, right?
Okay, Jorge, what's your approach? I'm super curious because I basically meet clients every week and they keep asking me this question. Hey guys, so what you do? Is it esport organization? Are you an agency? What's up?
Right. I think so. The difference between an esports organization and an agency is when you are an agency, you are looking for clients for the people you represent.
Yeah.
And here what you're basically looking for is to create a hub, kind of like a platform of content and of entertainment fed by the team and its esports activities, and the influencers, through streams, video, VODs, and other sorts of content. So one part, kind of like a team, an esports organization is more the client of the influencers, whereas an agency is more of a provider. And sometimes
Misha,
you can be both.
Yeah. Misha, do you understand the difference?
Well, yeah, because I'm an agency. I think at the end of the way I see an agency is the agency is the agency is agnostic, right? Their job is to really give the client kind of an entryway into lots of different options. Whereas if you are an esports organization, your interest is you, right?
Yeah.
So
your brand.
That's the difference. I mean, that's the benefit that we bring. We don't represent any one particular organization. Our job is to make sure that we help on that journey to advise into what particular organization or a number of organizations that make sense for the client.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. So we got a great question from Stanisław on the chat. Misha, you are familiar with esports, but let's say you are not such an expert as Jorge and Lukasz, and basically you are meeting the top brands on the daily basis. Do you feel like when talking with those top brands like Coca-Cola, Adidas, etc., they still treat esport like a niche, or they treat it as something equal with, I don't know, music, movies, traditional sport? How does it look from outside?
Well, look, I think that depends on the brand. I mean, the examples that you mentioned, no. I mean, those guys understand it really well. They're quite, the likes of Adidas and Coca-Cola, they are mainstream, but they also tend to be at the forefront of what's going on. I mean, these companies have been involved in gaming for, I wouldn't say it's from the beginning, but they've been involved in it from early on. You have other more traditional major brands that haven't been involved in esports, but maybe traditional sport, like let's say insurance or banking or even some of the FMCG companies. For them it's still a little bit confusing because it's outside of as a space, it's still quite different to them. And as I was saying, because it's mostly digital, it's hard for them to understand exactly how they sort of live in, how they live in that world, and how they measure and perform in that type of environment. Even though, it's in many ways easier to measure when you're in the digital world. So I guess the answer to your question, it just depends on the companies. The ones that you mentioned, Adidas and Coca-Cola, would know and they see it as mainstream. Others still very much sort of on the periphery of what they would consider.
Okay, so my very last question to Jorge and Lukasz. We have recently seen that the esports organization get very interested in the streamers' activities. How important the streaming is for you guys? For example, in comparison with the esport performance, simply playing esport matches and winning tournaments. How important are the streamers right now?
Right. So one of the good things here is in esports, right, is that you have your main activity, which are the matches, and those happen a couple times per week, say, right, at the LEC, for example. And then for the rest of the week, you need to keep your audience engaged and entertained, right? So, but you want your players to keep focused on the game and on practicing, so you don't want them streaming too much, right? And having streamers allows you to keep your audience entertained, through your brand and keep them engaged throughout the whole week. Up until the next match. So you're kind of creating that hype and you're kind of keeping them there, right? So I think it is a vital part. I think you cannot understand esports without streamers or YouTubers. It is one and the same thing, not because it's the same activity, but because it was born together and it is destined to stick together.
Okay, perfect. Lukasz, if you agree, I will skip this question because I love the answer from Jorge. We got 2 minutes more, and I got a perfect question from the chat. And I believe you are the person who should answer. So the question is, I need to translate it from Polish on the fly. So it's gonna be like this. If you win tournaments like Worlds in League of Legends, for example, does it mean that at once you receive more attention from the clients? Or such esports successes in terms of the performance, winning particular tournaments are not that important for sponsors as, for example, the general value of the brand is. So to simplify the question, is it directly important for sponsors that the team is winning the tournament right now?
So I would say competitive success is really important. Of course, our role is to entertain people, and having a competitive success is like a fuel. It allows us to tell some stories. But at the end of the day, like having trophy in a shelf is just having a trophy in a shelf. You have to use the opportunity and interact with your fan base, grow this fan base, tell all those stories. And in general, you're as good as you can utilize all the competitive success. So it's like a tool on a daily basis that you have to use, and then you have to guide your clients, you have to guide brands how to join this journey and then celebrate the success together.
Awesome. Thank you, Lukasz. Thank you, guys, for your time. Jorge Schnura Becerro, President, Co-founder of MetLions, Misha Sher, MediaCom, and Lukasz Zolynia, Partnership Manager at G2 Esports. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Guys, we are heading to the last panel. Kate's already coming, and she's going to discuss the investment part of the esports and gaming industry. We are coming back just in a couple of minutes. Please stay with us.